So my name's Lorna Davies and I'm a midwife, a midwifery lecturer, a researcher and an author, and I'm based in Christchurch in New Zealand, although I originally came from the UK. And I became very interested in the impact of the fast life that we lead a number of years ago when I became interested in meditation. My mother used to read a poem to me. It was along the lines of, it might not be exactly right, but what is this life if full of care we have no time to stop and stare, or stand and stare, I think it was. And, you know, never a truer word has been spoken. And in our very busy lives in the 21st century, we get caught up in the whole, what I call the hamster wheel syndrome, that makes it very difficult to stop and get off. And what drives this is our neurohormonal system, and we are constantly stimulating our sympathetic nervous system, activating hormones like adrenaline, noradrenaline, and in the longer term, the more insidious hormone of cortisol. And I think we don't realise that we're doing it. It's very easy to just get caught up in everyday actions. There always seems to be so much to do. We don't have time to think. How many of us say to friends, family, colleagues, how are things at the moment? And the response is busy, really busy. And it's almost become a badge of honour in a strange way to be busy and engaged in something all the time. And conversely, to just stop and sniff the daisies is seen as being a little bit unproductive, not the best thing to do with your time. And yet we actually need those breaks in life. And I was introduced to, I guess you'd call it a movement, the slow movement, a number of years ago. The slow movement probably started with slow food back in the 1980s with Carl Petrini in Italy, who went on to develop this wonderful slow food movement as a protest to fast food outlets like McDonald's, Burger King, Kentucky Fried Chicken. And it's become a worldwide movement where the focus is on really spending time producing wonderful food with love, patience, and getting away from that idea that something has to be quick, the quick fix solution in a food-based sense. The slow movement's gone on to incorporate lots of other areas of life. In fact, you can apply the principles to any area of life, from education, parenting, healthcare, even sex, and really thinking about how we can bring a slower approach to actually get that parasympathetic nervous system activated. Get those hormones like serotonin, melatonin, oxytocin that we know so much about within our sphere of maternity care, and go with the flow rather than trying to scrabble ahead of the stream all the time. And Carl Honore was a journalist who, he's written a number of books actually, but I read In Praise of Slow, probably about 15 years ago now, where he really unpacks those different areas and talks about how we can do this in our lives. So it's really worth having a look at his books. And he was actually introduced to the idea of slow when he was I think he worked for something like the New York Times, and he was on his way home from an overseas job that he was doing, and he passed one of the airport bookshops where we were always drawn. And he saw a children's book called 2-Minute Fairy Stories, and he thought, amazing, I'm going to go and get that, because that means that I can actually have time to spend with my kids and ensure that they get a story before they go to bed. And he was just about to pay for the book when he stopped in his tracks and had what I guess you'd call an epiphany. And he said, what am I doing? I'm considering buying a book that's going to enable me to provide my children with my time in 2 minutes to read them a bedtime story. And at that point, he kind of disengaged from that rapid world that he lived in. He went in search of slow and researched it all over the world. So I've used Carl Honoré a lot in developing the principles that I now try to use in practice and in life. And I became a mindfulness teacher a few years ago as a result of introducing mindfulness within childbirth education. And although we didn't do any research around this, it became very clear that a mindful approach and slowing down made a difference to those parents to be in our sessions. And those who went on to have elective sections or emergency sections or assisted births, in addition to the normal straightforward physiological births, noted that it made a difference to how they did things and how they approached parenting. And I think there's a lot of work to be done on this. Hannah Dahlen has been involved in a project in Australia that has got some good hard research data to support it. So it's certainly not without evidence to support it as a means of actually making a difference in childbirth. And I just thought that it might be quite useful to introduce some very basic principles of mindfulness. Mindfulness is just a way of being. Yes, it does come from Eastern religious traditions, but we can use it in any context. It's a way of actually slowing down our systems by taking our monkey mind out of the equation. How often do we just have these thoughts jumping about in our heads? And it's just an opportunity to say to the monkey, I don't need you there at the moment. I just need to have some peace and quiet and solitude. And the application is basically by focusing on something very simple. And sometimes that might be a candle, it may be a musical tone, or more commonly, it's just our breath. And by focusing on our breath, we train our mind to just disengage with thought, even if only for a moment. And so I'm just going to do a very brief introduction to this principle. There's lots of different ways of doing it. So I would ask that you just find a comfortable position where you can sit or lie. You might want to sit cross-legged with your back straight against a wall. If you're yoga, or if you're a yogi, I should say, rather than a yoga, you may want to put yourself into a more traditional yogi position to carry this out. But you can just sit in a chair, as I say, or on the floor. There is an inclination to fall asleep, I think, if you lie down, so sitting up is probably better, with your hands just resting on your thighs or with your hands clasped in your lap, however you're comfortable. And then just take a couple of nice, deep breaths to start off with. Maybe in through your nose and gently exhaling through your mouth. And just feel a little bit of relaxation as you do that. Mindfulness isn't about relaxation, although it can be relaxing. And often we carry tension in our shoulders, and as we do that deep breathing, our shoulders relax. And then either close your eyes or just find a spot that you can focus on the wall, on the floor, and apply a soft gaze. Let the edges go blurry. But if you can close your eyes, that's probably preferable. Just close out the world for a few moments. And become aware of the surfaces where you're placed, where you're sitting, where you're reclining or lying. And just feel the surfaces and how they meet the areas of your body that are touching them. Think about your feet on the floor, your hands on your lap or on your thighs, how well your back's being supported. But you're doing this without judging. You're not thinking, oh, that doesn't feel comfortable. If you need to make a little readjustment, do, but it's more focusing on that contact, non-judgmentally. And then just think about how you're sinking into the ground, gravity holding you down, connecting with the earth. Nice, heavy feeling. Become aware of the sounds around you, whether you're indoors or outdoors. Mindfulness exercises can be carried out wherever you are, often without anybody even realizing that you're doing them. And you may find that there are layers of sound, so some are further away and some are closer to you. And you can kind of filter those sounds, but become aware that there are sounds that you probably didn't even realize were there. Again, just note and move on to the next sound. Don't try to connect the sound with a thought. Just note and move on to the next sound. And now become aware of your breath. There's no need to do any deep breathing like we did at the beginning of the exercise. Just have awareness of your breath, the movement of your breath. Think about the breath as it enters your body and when it leaves as you exhale. As it enters, is it colder or warmer? And as it leaves, the same. Is it colder or warmer? Does it have a different quality? Think about where your breath can be felt in your body. It may be in your chest. It may be further down around your diaphragm, or it may be deep belly breath. Doesn't matter. Just consider where it is. Don't analyze, just note. Just feel for a few seconds that rise and fall, rise and fall. Nothing else matters. This is the moment. You don't need to think about what happened or what's going to happen. You're just here and now with that movement of the breath. Thoughts may pop into your mind, they often do, and we can actually train our mind to stop accepting these thoughts, or at least slow them down. So if thoughts come into your mind, just let them go. Let them go like a balloon or a bubble or a cloud, just some imagery that allows that thought to just drift away and return to the rhythm of your breath. And just spend a moment just doing that, rise and fall. become aware of the sounds once again. The external sounds and the sounds that are closer within the room, perhaps even within your own body. And again, just let them filter through. And now return to the surfaces where you're sitting or resting or lying. Just feel that connection with your body, that sense of connection with the earth. And in your own time, when you're ready, just open your eyes or sharpen your gaze and return into the room with clarity of thought after giving that monkey a little break. That was a very rapid run through of an exercise that can take considerably longer, but the principles are there, and it is something that you can just use. You can do this in a minute if you're under stress, just taking some nice deep steady breaths and focusing on those just for 1 minute can make a difference, especially in times of urgency or emergency. I do hope that you've enjoyed this introduction to slow and the power of slow, the art of slow, and there are other places on the page where you can find further information, and I'm more than happy to talk to anybody if you want to make contact with me. My details are also on the page. Thank you.